Hello, and welcome to my EDN 353 Assessment 3. My name is Thomas Barrett. I'm going to be responding to some of your questions, but firstly, I would like to acknowledge the Whadjuk Noongar people. Where I'm currently recording this is on Whadjuk Noongar land, and I want to extend my gratitude to the elders past, present, and emerging. I've been grateful to be on Noongar country for about 14 years now, living in Perth. And I just think it's such a wonderful place to live. So I'm really grateful that I get the opportunity to do that. Um, so today I will be I will be yarning about somewhere that means a lot to me and I really like visiting. Uh, I am wearing my Sydney Swans Guernsey. Might give a little bit away, but maybe not too much. Yeah, I will continue. So my place that I've chosen to have a yarn about is Perth Stadium. Um, the reason I chose Perth Stadium, being an absolute football fanatic and a Sydney Swans fan, I often get to see my Swans play at Perth Stadium. Um, when I was living in um, East Perth, I was actually literally from the corner of my balcony. I could just see the stadium getting built. Super unfortunate, but I actually had to move before the stadium opened, which was really upsetting, but it was okay because I've been plenty of times. That photo there is actually one I took myself after a Sydney versus GWS game. No matter what, the home team always puts their colours around the stadium, and it just so happened that Sydney were playing at home because it was through COVID. So it is red and white, and I just thought that was incredible because I don't get to see that all the time. Just sorry, something I will note is if you can see on the stadium here, the sort of colours that they use are all um, natural colours. So they've done that really well to, yeah, sort of just include those natural warm tones. Um, so why I chose Perth Stadium, well, as I said, I'm a really big football fan and a sport fan in general. So I've had the pleasure of watching a lot of sport at Perth Stadium or Optus Stadium. I will probably refer to it as both as I go through the slides. But my strong connection to football comes through my connection to my community in playing sport. I played football since I was 14, but I've been playing football for Bull Creek Leaming over here in WA for over 10 years now. Unfortunately, had to retire after a third knee reconstruction last year. Um, but as you can see, this is one of my friends and myself at Optus Stadium after we probably flogged the West Coast Eagles. Sorry if you're a West Coast fan watching this. And then that would have been the other photo would have been at a Swans Open training to get up close, real nice and close, and get to watch the boys train, which was pretty cool. I've done that on a few occasions. Um, so I thought I'd tie that into my connection to Perth Stadium and some of the Indigenous players from the Sydney Swans. Now, unfortunately, very unfortunately, I never got to see Adam Goodes play at Optus Stadium, but I did get to see him play at Domain, and he was a very big influence to me as a young kid um, coming and playing AFL. He was born in South Australia and he came from a soccer background, and I happened to move to South Australia as a young boy, and I came from a soccer background, so I found out about I had previously lived in Sydney, and I found out about this team and this guy called Adam Goods, and I was just hooked, like, just absolutely um, like amazed at what he could do and how he could move. And I won't get too much into the back end of his career. Obviously, that was a pretty disappointing end. And then I've got my my mate Buddy Franklin there. It's actually the first game ever played at Optus Stadium for the men's football, and Big Buddy kicked 8 goals, and I was up with all the West Coast fans, absolutely loving life. Yeah, that was a great game to go to, and I've really enjoyed. Now, unfortunately, I don't think I'll be able to put these in my resource list. A few of these photos I just have had on my phone for a very, very long time. Lots of them, like the photo I took before and photos I'm going to go through and show you, they are actually photos I've taken. So I guess I could sort of just reference myself. But and then lastly, fortunately, never got to see Lewis play at Optus in the red and white, but I did get to see him play for West Coast, and just happened to run into him on a night out in Freo at a karaoke bar. And he was just an incredible human. Just had all the time in the world to talk to me and my friend. My friend's Irish, so I didn't even know who Lewis is. And he's incredibly proud of the work he still does with the Swans. Goes out to remote communities and runs clinics and does talks with them. And he was such a good bloke. That picture is probably taken about 20 minutes before. You can see his cousin in the background. Us four were arm in arm singing karaoke together, which was just an incredible random Thursday. I love my Indigenous boys, and glad that they got to play for my club. So these are a few other pictures I've taken. Got to see Vance Joy and Ed Sheeran with my family, which was really nice. A few random photos I've taken of scores and the state of origin. So obviously, sport is a big part of my life, and to be able to go and watch it in this absolutely beautiful stadium is it's just such a treat. And through my work, I've actually gone and toured it twice and been paid to do it. So it was it was a pretty special day out. As you can see, more rugby, a bit of cricket. I have a couple of me and my friends. My friend there in the West Coast shirt, he actually takes me to every West Coast game. Bless him, because he's got membership, and we have a bet on whoever's team loses has to wear the other team's scarf. So that's why he's got a Sydney scarf on top of there. Anyway, I'll stop going on about myself, and I'll continue. So my connection to the Aboriginal people of Perth, really like this photo. This was just one again on my phone. So Optus Stadium and its playground. Ironically, it's called the Chevron Parklands. I'm not gonna say anything about that, but I'm pretty sure Chevron would probably be someone who's you know. Anyway, you can decide what I'm trying to put together there without saying it. But they have a playground there, which is really cool. It's actually modelled after the seasons, the 6 seasons, Noongar seasons. So I haven't done the full walkthrough of that yet. It's still sort of getting built when I did the tour of the stadium and such. But it's it looks pretty cool. Been to I think one or two of the little bits there, and it's designed to provide wind and shade protection throughout the year. So it's a really good, if you've got young kids, you can take them there. Excuse me. So the Beeloo Mundi territory. So the area around Burswood, known as Beeloo Mundi's territory, being a tribal name, and Mundi was the leader This was recorded by the census, and they would go and fish in the water and gather food, which I believe was a really important not only way to get food, but in their traditional ways, it was really the way of bonding and such. It says here that that's a direct quote. Uses Noongar community had no word for river, so Bilu was the closest interpretation. So that was meaning water, wetland, swamp, streams, pool, or so on. So that's interesting to know. So Burswood, the actual place where Optus Stadium was built, I believe it. Correct me if I'm wrong. It was a rubbish dump at some point. But obviously we're connecting to the Noongar people. So they occupied the Sandy Peninsula for thousands of years, and it was once a traditional ceremony site. So they've found lots of artifacts around this part of Burswood and part of the area. And it was utilised really well by the Noongar people. So it was a campground until the 20th century, on the shoulder of the place of the Spearwood Camp on the hill. Yeah, so it was a really special place in that they would have ceremonies, but also was a place that they would set up camp, and ultimately live off the land around there, hunt, gather fish. Now I'm going to talk about the bridge, the Matagarup Bridge. So it connects East Perth and Burswood. Matagarup meaning shin deep. So this water was really good because they would be able to cross the water. So the Noongar people were fishing and caring for the Swan River, Derbyl Yerrigan, for tens of thousands of years, and it's integral to not only their spirit and culture, but also their means of gathering food. And interestingly enough, it was hard to find information on what Matagarup was, but it would link you straight to the bridge. So to get the actual meaning of shin deep was a lot tougher than what it was to find information about like the zip lining and stuff, which is a bit bizarre to me. I'm sort of just like, okay, surely that would come up as one of the top things, but I guess zip lining's making the money. So again, that's not what I'm supposed to directly be talking about, but it does happen. Interestingly enough, when I did the tour of the stadium, they said the tip of the bridge is actually higher than the highest point of the stadium itself. So I thought that was a really interesting fact. So yeah, as you can see, there is quite a connection between Optus Stadium and the Burswood area and the Indigenous Noongar people. It was a little harder to find a little bit more information about that area because I think it was taken over quite earlier on. As I said, I believe it was a rubbish dump at some point. So yeah, but it's really cool. So, and obviously there's still people that fish there and use the waters for recreational boating and not so much any camping. But yeah, that is my yarn about a place that you might you might like. I know a lot of people probably have places down south, and they camp or, but my heart really belongs to sport, and I just get a great sense of joy going to that stadium. Um, Only when Sydney win, obviously, but but no, I just sport is my connection to my community, as I said, and it's been a really big part of my like mental health and welfare, and my body's broken because of it. As I said, I've just had a third knee reconstruction, but I wouldn't have it any other way. So that ends the first bit of my presentation. Now I'm going to go on to prompt 2, which was reflection. So reflect on how Aboriginal students experiences and expectations of schooling are shaped by multiple factors outside of education, including family, background, history, geography. Include your personal experience in this reflection and use relevant materials from the unit resources to support your arguments. So I could probably draw on personal experience a fair bit here. I'm working as a special needs education assistant in a city school, and while we don't have a high population of Indigenous students, we certainly do have Indigenous students. In fact, over the last school term, we've gained even more. Been working closely with one boy in the year 5 and 6 class, really getting to know him. So his family is from Katanning, and he actually really loves football himself. So it's been a really good way for me to bond with this student. He is quite capable at reading. He's quite good at maths. There is some days where he comes in just too tired to do anything, and just wants to lie on a beanbag from almost the start of the day till the end, which is absolutely fine. So we've been really accommodating in what we like to say is meeting a student at their level. If they come in ready to learn, beautiful. How can we support you with what you're going to learn today? You can obviously see if they come in quite heightened. It has been like that. This year, the student I'm working with has a little brother in kindy who is just reluctant to go to kindy until he's there. When he gets there, he absolutely loves it. But sometimes it's just that first step, and he's a really good big brother, and he wants his brother to go to school, so he will make sure his brother is in his class before he goes. And I think it's about us understanding that, because it's like if I was to say, hey, come on, let's go to class, that would probably just frustrate him, because now I know, he needs to see his brother walk into the class. It's not even just walk off with the teacher. It's not even be greeted by the teacher. It's, I need to see my brother go into that class. So it's, they have a really strong family bond. But it's only early. There's only a few weeks, and I've had a few shifts with him, so just still really starting to get to know him. I know he loves his sport. He has his granddad who paints, so he's really interested in his paintings and such. So it's something we're going to draw upon and possibly utilize in our teaching, and I'll obviously work with the teacher, and it'll be really good. But it's been enjoyable working with him, getting to know him. So I'm rambling now. So 8 ways of learning. So this is sort of something we've looked at So the 8 ways of learning: story sharing, community links, deconstruction, reconstruction, non-linear, land links, symbols and images, non-verbal, and learning maps. So a few of them that I've really had a look at. So one is story sharing. I love hearing some of these stories, and just the way that, it's just a little bit differently to how I think of things or how I would recollect a fact. Um, but some of these things they're just, how they link this to this and this to this. I was reading somewhere that um, they they know when a certain star lines up with a certain point or another star, that's when it's emu season, and like emu hunting season, and there's more emus around, and it's just incredible. I think. Now I've actually got a few more modern short story sharing books here. So obviously I did say I'm a big Adam Goods fan. So I've got a few of his books. So he's worked really closely in creating some really cool. And I think what these do is they bring the two ways of learning together. The story sharing, but through picture book. And I love the illustration in this. Sorry, you can't really see much, but I love the illustration, and people can relate to this. They're going to go back on country and visit their grandma and grandpa, which I'm sure the kids, any kids in the school can relate to. And look, the grandpa's sitting there playing guitar, and they're all having a yarn, and I just think it's really cool. Um, and that's obviously a new modern way of story sharing. But there'd be kids that would come into class, and they'd have their elders, and their aunties and uncles and grandparents talk about Dreamtime, or talk about their experiences, and that might be one way that they learn, by just taking it all in. Symbols and images, well, the stories behind, hang on, actually, like like my Sydney jersey, the stories behind the symbols and images. So this one, I read the blurb, and it was actually these um, circles here represent the 13 Indigenous players that have played for the Sydney Swans. And I just love the patterns that they do, and they work together, and um, they mean, um, I can't remember what quite the tying together means, but there's a whole in-depth reason um, that they do these kinds of patterns and such, and I just think that looks so cool. Um, so students who have come from an Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander background may have different teachings and learnings. So storytelling for generations, First Nations people learnt by storytelling, often called Dreamtime, linking the past, present, and future. These stories were passed on for generations and generations. Um, so they use land links as a place um, I, what is that? By connecting the land to where they live. So obviously, the stories and such might be, and the teaching will be relevant to where they live in Australia. Um, community links, so helping their community with, or mob, as they might say, to bring new ideas or stories. Um, so this is a way from one um, community to maybe um, talk and bring back new ideas to another community that they've learnt. Yarning circles, which is a really good idea to do in your own classroom. I feel like that's one that you can do, and that would be able to really bring um, a safe and way for children to speak, but also bring in that sort of community feel. So counting in fives, this was one I read up on. So often Indigenous people will use five and call it body counting, so they'll do fives and fives. It's just a way that they've probably learnt to count. I know I still count on my fingers most of the time, so um, so they had, First Nations people had to use resources they could attain around them to craft and create. Even medicine was used from natural resources. So, and this is, I've included a picture of these teachers. They're obviously learning how to weave. I was working at a school once, and we actually had an Indigenous elder come out and run through a lot of this and literally take us into the bushland of the school and talk us through, some of the things that he's learnt from his grandparents. And that was a really cool experience. And it was, really different for the kids, and they loved it. Like, this kind of learning is fun. Kids really do resonate with this sort of learning. I've just got, wow, that's very right. Got some references here which you'll be able to check out. Um, I wanted to leave this in. It's a bit off topic, but there's a poet that I really like, and I think there's been a lot of things in the media over the last few days. I'm obviously doing this a little bit later than everyone else, and these words, they just really resonate with me. So it says, "Goodness dies in silence, so think that you should speak." It's by Lucas Jones, and he's probably my favorite poet at the moment. But I know Jen said that if everyone does videos, it gets a bit mundane. So what I've done is I've sort of taken that those few words, and I've written a poem myself, just showing a little bit of my creative side, I guess. So I will read that out to you. Bear in mind, this is not really something I show this side of me very often, so this might be a nice little way to do it. So it goes like this. There's hatred in some people's hearts, on reels and on TV. There's hatred in some people's hearts. That hatred stops with me. When hatred sparks its fortune, people flock to mock and shame. Oh, when something comes to light, hatred shows its ugly name. There's people spreading info, like, here, have this, no questions. Believe what I believe, but there's things that they don't mention. There's hatred in the things they say. I'm not sure where they get it. When hatred shows in reels of those, hatred always takes the credit. There's hatred in the comments and all over the screen. There's hatred in some people's hearts, like you can't believe. And if goodness dies in silence, goodness will not die with me. Yeah, I've just, I've been feeling a little bit upset about what's been happening in the media the last few days, and it's just, it's just a little way that I've been able to try and help myself sort of cope with some really ugly behaviour. But I was really proud of that. I think that's probably one of the better poems that I've written. So, and I just really, I like the, obviously taken Lucas's last couple of lines there, but changed it a little. And if goodness dies in silence, goodness will not die with me. So I thought that was quite nice. Anyway, I know that's a bit not really on topic, but I thought it would be nice to share. Okay, so that's 30 minutes. Thank you so much for watching my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it, and have a lovely day or evening. Bye.